Some people really struggle to speak their own truth, but other people just can't help it. My guest this week is one of the latter, and in that sense, he couldn't be more of a clown. Let's take a peek into the bushes and meet Rootsman Rak.
Welcome to the Clown Spirit Podcast. And here's your clowntastic host, Mr. Barnaby.
Hello and welcome. So glad that you made it, that you're listening to the Clown Spirit Podcast. This week, I'm bringing you a conversation with a particularly remarkable individual. We sometimes call these Clown Plus interviews because the people that we invite are not clowns. They're from outside of the world of clowning. And there's a reason for that. It's because I feel that I want to spread clowning beyond the world of clowning. And I want us as clowns to connect with worlds beyond clowning. I truly believe that clowning has some immense value for the world right now. That there's so much we can learn from it, from actually doing it and just studying it and connecting with the clown energy. And so I think it's really vital that we're connecting clowning with many other practices, whether that's activism, social justice work, environmentalism, personal development work, growth work, spirituality, work around diversity. So many areas where people are doing amazing, groundbreaking, courageous work to make the world a better place, to help people less fortunate than themselves. And many of the people that I interview in Clown Plus most of them are in that category. But most of them don't know very much about clowning. And that is particularly true of my interviewee this week. His name is Rakesh. He also goes by the name Rootsman Rak. He's a really phenomenally interesting person with a huge range and array of experiences and skills. In this conversation, he talks us through his own journey from very poor immigrant family living in East London to his career as a computer engineer or software programmer, to homeopathy, permaculture, renewable energy education, DJing, yoga teaching. He's also a tantric meditator, among other things, and very outspoken social and climate justice activist, you could say. He blends all of those things, but he never really thought very much about clowning. In fact, at first it was quite hard to find the connection to clowning, but I think you'll find that by the end of the conversation, we found some really productive connections with clowning. And I also invite you to think about what connections you make as you listen to the conversation. If you have listened to this podcast before, or just are in the world of clowning, I'm sure you know quite a bit. You have your own ideas, conceptions of what clowning is and its value in the world. And as you listen to Rakesh talking, I'm sure that you will be making your own connections. So I encourage you to listen with open ears, open mind, and notice what you notice. And please share in the comments, in the review section of the podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on. Let us know what you think about Rakesh and his work and its connections to clowning. We want to bring the lightness, joy, and connection of clowning to as many people as possible around the world. And this podcast is part of that mission. So help us spread the word and bring that lightness, joy, and connection to more and more people around the world. Thank you so much. And we're going to kind of jump into the middle of the conversation here. I asked Rakesh to talk about a very cool project that he'd sent me a link to, an Instagram link, and I'm going to put that link into the show notes. It was involving a Henry Hoover. Now, if you're not British, you may not know what Henry Hoover is, but it's on the thumbnail image for this podcast episode. You'll see it. It's one of those small sort of portable vacuum cleaners, and it has a face on the front, and it's called a Henry Hoover. I think you'll agree with me that it is particularly clownish in appearance. And so I asked Rakesh to explain about this project. Why had he converted this Henry Hoover into a pedal-powered sound system?
The upcycled Henry Hoover pedal-powered sound system project is I help people to understand energy efficiency. We can throw numbers at people, and quite often that is completely meaningless to them. I can say 3 watts, I can say 3,000 watts. What does that mean? So, through the pedal-powered generators I make, when something requires a heavier load, i.e., is taking more wattage, is utilizing more power, it's physically more difficult to actually pedal, to actually generate that electricity. So you feel it when you're cycling. And so I can have conversations with people and show people different types of devices that we can use, that we might be using. For example, light bulbs. And a 3-watt light bulb, you barely need to touch the pedal and it's lit. A 10 or 15-watt light bulb, and okay, you have to pedal, but it's still really easy. 60-watt light bulb, all of a sudden, now you're feeling that. 100-watt light bulb, wow, it's like cycling uphill. And then you start saying, right, so those were the variations. Let's think about the different things that you use every day. How much wattage does each of them utilize? And so you then, show maybe a laptop 60 to 100 watts, 200 watts in some cases. And, mobile phones is actually quite low, but it takes a long time to charge. So you're going to have to be pedaling for 6 hours to actually charge it up if it takes you 6 hours to charge your phone, because you're generating more energy than the phone can actually take. If you give it as much energy as you can produce, your battery will blow up. So all these kind of things, and then we start bringing in things like, well, how much does a kettle consume or a toaster? And most people are clueless. And when you actually then show them it's between 1,500 and 3,000 watts, all of a sudden, when they felt what it was like to generate 100 watts, that's like 30 people cycling uphill to make my cup of tea. Wow. And so it then starts whole conversations. But to make it even more fun, I build all kinds of things. And being a DJ, music is obviously really dear to me. And so to make pedal-powered sound systems is, for me, a really joyful way. So I can now take out my mini sound system, take it anywhere, unplug it, or put it together, pedal away, generate some music, entertain. And so I'm always looking for creative ways in which I can do that. And we found a Henry Hoover, which was broken. The motor was blown, and it was just on the roadside. So, wow, perfect. And I found some speakers that were also rejected. They were really smashed in. Took it out of the box, and well, rehouse it inside the Henry Hoover. So basically, I've got a sub, or I've got a mid sub pointing downwards. You've got really heavy bass on the left channel, and then on the right channel I've got another speaker, which is, it was a all-in-one boxed speaker with mids, yeah, it's kind of sub bass, mids and tops. So I could put all that together just on the other channel, and that's it. Bluetooth amplifier, plug it into one of my pedal powered generators, and off we go. So it's all, most of it is all recycled materials to make this happen, and
And
it's,
how
yeah, it's just fun.
it sounds like a lot of this is in service of education and but also fun.
For sure. So I can take it to schools, and the kids absolutely love it. They can't get enough of cycling. They're queuing up. I take it to festivals and the same, uh, and then I take it to different events, like green events. I'll be at the Green Fair. I'll be at the Crops Not Shops Sacred Earth Festival. I'll be at the London Permaculture Festival. So again, it's a mixture of entertainment and education. So edutainment.
And
So,
do these festivals like pay you to go and do that, or are you doing it with grants? How does that work?
a mix, a mix. Some when in order to build it, I actually got a grant to actually build it and run it
Right.
as a project. So to build a big sound system, I got, finance to actually do that and deliver it and teach lots of people how to actually make it and then deliver it to, literally to, I think, 500 different people across a year, meaning entertain 500 and show people how it works.
Would you call yourself a performer? That do you have to, you have to perform to big groups of people. You have to present these ideas.
I've been DJing ever since I can remember. So I am a performer in that sense. And even when I teach, I kind of because through I don't teach. What I do is I get people to work things out and I
Mm.
get them to think, to imagine, to hypothesize, and I do that through stories. So I'm always telling stories to get people to imagine themselves in that situation, imagine themselves as that animal or as that tree or as a plant, and to imagine, well, what do I need in order for me to thrive and for my heart to really sing? What do I need? How much water? How much sun? What other nutrients? And where do I get it from? What if I can't get it? What's my strategy? What do I do? How do I survive? And through this imagination, this is how people learn for themselves how to meet the needs of a tree.
And you're a storyteller.
I'm a storyteller for sure.
What's a story that you love to tell? Could you tell us a quick story?
Well, so I guess a lot of the stories I have are around things that I have done, obviously.
Mm.
And some are good, some are not so good, some are quite yeah, quite painful. Some
Mm.
are because of my past history of where I grew up and what have you.
Is there a story that would help us understand why you're doing what you do?
Sure. But I can say why I am good at what I do. It's
Mm.
because I grew up in a very poor part of East London, in a very racist part of East London. And so two things there. First of all, there was a lot of violence, as Skinhead went from being very pro black and white to going to being neo-Nazi, and the school was extremely violent. And when the teachers were trying to tell me things, I had this understanding of the world that went beyond my age. And every time I questioned the teachers, because I could see they were telling me something that just wasn't right, they would physically beat me and punish me for trying to tell the truth. So effectively, I worked out how to look like I was in school without actually having to go to classes so that I could avoid being brainwashed and tortured and all the rest of it. So I spent a lot of my time just sitting in a tree waiting for the truant officers to go by so I could then just walk home and do whatever I wanted at home. And so I spent a lot of time watching, seeing, observing, understanding human patterns, understanding the school, understanding the teachers, understanding the security, understanding the truant officers, and so that I can understand how I could navigate my way and avoid being captured. So through just sitting there watching birds, because I was where I used to sit was up a willow tree over a pond, over a big lake actually. So I was watching birds, I was watching, how different animals behave in nature, and it was just fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So I had an understanding of the world. And when I left school, I had obviously no qualifications, so I had to make my own way. And one thing led to another. I got into computers. This is back in the 80s when it was still kind of, in its infancy, and and I was very good. So I progressed very quickly and got myself and my family out of poverty because of the money that I was earning in computers. Then at some point, basically I got to the point where I could choose which jobs to take and when to work and when not to work. So I would work a little bit and then go traveling a bit. And then I decided, right, now I need to give something back to the world. Now that I'm stable, now I can give something. So I started studying, well, long story short, I ended up studying homeopathy and became a homeopath and realized that as a computer consultant, I was earning 20 times more money than an average homeopath. And it's like, so I'm really not doing this for money. So I
Mm.
couldn't understand why until I then met a person who was on her way to Congo in the middle of the war to practice homeopathy. And I was like, wow. For me, the thought of practicing homeopathy in England, white middle class people with white middle class diseases and illnesses, and that was so unappealing. But then all of a sudden to think of, wow, going into the middle of a war zone, and I was like, right, what do you need? £5,000? Yeah, no problem, sorted. What else? Can I come with you? And so I started doing lots of disaster relief work. And that was really fascinating. And that then led me into disaster preparation. So preparing for disasters, getting people ready so that when disaster hit, they don't need to wait for NGOs to come and do anything. They could just go, make things happen. And yes, they had their own resilience as opposed to relying on external forces. So sometimes I do that. Sometimes I just be a reggae DJ and just travel the world, going festival to festival, just playing music. And on one of these occasions, I kept meeting a girl. She eventually said, well, why would you want to go back to England? I was in Croatia at the time and I had no excuse to go back to England. So I stayed in Croatia. We eventually got married, and she basically wouldn't allow me to go to all these dangerous places, to all these earthquakes and cyclones. So basically, I said, right, what else can I do? Let's build a house. And so that got me onto thinking about how to build houses, grow food, etc. And that led me into starting an eco village, and that led me to learning about permaculture. Because when I got to the first eco village, people were like, wow, you should be teaching this stuff. You should teach us. And I'm like, should I teach you? You should be teaching me. You're living here. You know this better than I do. I'm from the town. They say, yeah, but you understand it. Yeah, but come on, that's common sense. That's just common sense as to how that works and how that doesn't work. And for me, as I say, all of these things are just common sense because all of these things are things that I had to solve when I was a child. When something broke, we would work out how to fix it. If we needed furniture, we would build it ourselves. If our clothes broke, we would stitch it back together again.
Mm.
So we would really, and with my cultural background in my the religion that my parents had, every single festival, every part of their culture is all about environmentalism. It's all linked back to nature and respecting and taking care of nature. So nature takes care of us. So we don't have to invent a green movement because it's totally
Yeah,
inherent in our
right.
culture.
This makes me think about my own kids. You come into contact with a lot of kids, and
Uh,
I feel like there's such a different environment that they're growing up in now, where they're sort of protected, they're sort of in a bubble, and this kind of immersion in screens, and it's just their life now. Whereas you and I just think because there was nothing else to do, we would just spend a lot of time outside exploring, climbing trees, running around, getting into trouble. And it really worries me. Like what is the effect of this on young people? And are they gonna have the ability to find their way to do things like the wonderful things that you're doing? How are they gonna figure that out?
what I notice is because of education, which basically, I mean, Einstein said, all kids are born geniuses, then they go to school. Because as we know, the school system is designed to churn out people to fit into the capitalistic model. And and so where do you fit in depends on how much money, how much wealth, how much privilege you have, and your mentality as to whether you're blue collar, white collar, and all the rest of it, or whether you're ruling classes and so on. And but people are not really encouraged to really express themselves, really understand themselves, and really figure things out for themselves. And less people have the capability now to actually really think through the repercussions of their actions. And for me, this is the most significant challenge because it means, like the same way as we know with how Hitler managed to get people to do hideous things, you're in one room, all you know is when this light goes on, you pull this lever. You have no idea what's happening at the other end. And so people do things uh, without consideration. If, for example, on our chocolate bars, we were to see the number of children and how they're beaten, how they're stolen from one part of Africa, taken to another, and beaten into submission, barely fed in order to produce this chocolate. If that was graphically displayed and explained on each chocolate bar, if we were to really understand the difference between something that and okay, fair trade is actually really difficult to actually, while it's trying to do something honest and unfortunately it isn't really working. There's still a lot of exploitation, a lot of things that get through and get stamped fair trade, which really are not.
Mm.
Um, you just have to look at documentaries like The Dark Side of Chocolate or The Dark Side of Tea to see the repercussions of that. But many people, if they were truly to see the repercussions of their actions, I imagine most of us have a heart and enough compassion to be able to say, "Wow, that's not right. Yeah, I will." That's why I'll pay for that. I'll pay a little bit extra for that because, but we don't see it. We're not exposed to it. And most people, when I even, 50 years or sorry, 30 years I've been talking about things like this, it hasn't changed one bit. But going back to how some of the challenges we face, what I see is the younger generation are born with a kind of, or are grown up in a kind of understanding that things are not right, things are not well, and we have to change. So there is a desire to try and do the right thing. I get lots of young people on my workshops, and I feel while perhaps at a bigger level, yes, there is a problem, but there's still a significant number of young people who are really so much further ahead than I was at their age. They're thinking about things that I was not even close to thinking about. For me, there's a huge amount. I see a huge amount of hope. I see a really amazing young generation who are really, they're eco warriors, they're activists, they are really considering. But yeah, but how to give them those experiences, how to give them that opportunity to really experience these things. As you say, when we were young, yeah, we would do the most ridiculous, stupid things, which most kids, if they that their parents would never, ever, ever allow them to even get close to a road or to do some of the things, to jump off some of the things that we jumped off. And, you know, I'm not even gonna, yeah, try and go back down some of those memories. Yeah, for fear people might try that at home. But yeah, we have things like adventure playgrounds where there's a managed level of risk. They can
Yeah.
jump up and down, they can fall down, they can
Mm.
climb a tree. Um, and there's a managed level of risk on utilizing these non-linear, non-flat monoculture kind of surfaces so children get to learn to play and run around on uneven surfaces and to a
Yeah.
certain extent experience some of the things we did.
But they're somehow supervised in a way that makes it impossible for them to really get into trouble or get lost. And that was one of the experiences I remember that I think is really valuable, right? I disappear and get into trouble, like, have real problems and get lost, and then I have to sort of rescue myself somehow. And that develops this level of confidence in your own ability to look after yourself?
Apparently, when I was 18 months old, I walked around the block and I was on a main road on my own. And some stranger just kind of picked me up and kind of knocked on doors until, oh, down that road, and had to bring me back. So even, yeah, 18 months old, I was already wandering.
I love this image of you up in the willow tree, and good job working the tree into the story, by the way. That was cool. So, you up in this tree, bird watching kind of, and simultaneously people watching and
Mm,
learning about the movements of the birds and the movements of the people
mm,
at the same time from this vantage point of relative safety. And I'm wondering about, so it sounds like a lot of the people that you were watching and learning about were not good examples of, people. They were not necessarily going to fill you with like love for humanity, these particular people. But it sounds like you have developed that sort of love for humanity. So at what point was there something there that started to make you feel more positive about people and wanting to help people versus just wanting to escape and not be seen?
I think because of my upbringing from my parents, that love, that compassion was always there. It was
Mm,
just always there. But it was then a case of picking and choosing, well, who is really showing, who is reciprocating that and who is not. And I remember, I don't know, maybe I was 18 or something, and a lot of my friends were from a particular religion, and we'd get into these arguments, these, yeah, and you'd say something really you build logic and common sense and logic to build an argument, and then they would completely destroy it by throwing religion at it. I'm like,
mm.
but how, if you got two and you add two it's four, you add another two it's six, another two it's eight, another two it's 10. No, it's not, because my religion says this. What? How? Huh? And so I came back and I said to my father, this religion makes very, very, very intelligent people very stupid. Um, I said, what's my religion? You never really told me about what my religion is. And he said, look, what have we ever told you about life? You love and respect everyone. You give everyone a chance. It doesn't matter age, color, doesn't matter religion. Everyone on this earth is a valuable, beautiful soul. Uh, and many of them are misguided, and so but that's not their fault. It's it's society, but your duty is to take care of them all and to show love to them all and encourage them in whatever way you can. He said all the stories in your religion are all just to help you understand that. So if you understand that, you don't need all this paraphernalia. You don't need all the names of the different gods and the different this. You don't need those stories. You just need to show love and compassion and understanding to everyone. And
Mm.
he said that's your religion. So that was always deep in my heart. That's what I grew up with. Um, I must admit, I don't know, maybe I was 7, 8 years old. And I used to pray to God saying, why did you put me on this planet? You've made a mistake. I really don't belong here. I just don't belong here. Why? What have I done so wrong that you've put me on this planet? And because again of all the racism and all the yeah, I mean, I was such a happy child until I went to school. And I was so contented, so imaginative, and so yeah, I was just curious about everything, watching insects, watching butterflies and caterpillars and spiders, and just fascinated with the world. I remember 4 years old, my mum gave me my first cucumber plant to plant, and just watching this thing grow and get bigger, and oh, it's leaves, and oh, look, a flower, and oh my, what? That, oh my God, that's a cucumber. And just this absolute excitement and wonder, but how? Why? Wow. And I'll be honest, I'm 57 and I'm still like that. I can't imagine ever growing up and ever not being in complete wonderment of this incredible, beautiful world that we live on, that we live in, and that we're part of. And yes, so say that love and compassion has just always been there, and it's just a case of recognizing when someone hurts you is to try and understand their narrative. What what put them in that position that they felt that that was okay to do, you know, and and to be wary, to not put yourself in a situation where you're exploited or where you are threatened or where where you potentially you're well, I say that I do put myself in positions where I do get physically beaten, but that's out of when I see injustice, I can't just stand there and watch it. Just because everyone else is standing by just watching something happen, I can't. I just react, and I have got broken ribs because of it. I've got lots of physical. Um, yeah, I've broken so many bones.
Is that because you go to somebody's aid, somebody that you see being bullied or abused, and you end up being hurt yourself?
I just do what I feel is my dharma, what is my purpose in life, and that is to, I mean, one of the stories that I do tell, and it's quite a long one, and I actually use this as when we were looking at like decolonialization and we were looking at privilege and prejudice. I kind of use this as a tool where I was at a particular music or actually a kind of free fair, a festival in a big park, completely public, completely free.
Mm.
And I'm at the reggae stage and 2,000 people in there, band on stage. I have backstage pass, but I decided to go into the front and dance with everyone else. And these skinheads, I was there with my wife, and these skinheads kept trying to pick a fight with me, kept trying to, they'd spill beer over me, they'd do this, they'd do that, they'd egg me, and I keep moving away, moving away, moving away. And then eventually an Ethiopian character turns up and they spill beer over both of us. And he turns around, he's drunk, and he reacts, and bang, next thing you know, eight people trying to kick the shit out of him. And well, they were kicking, they were literally stamping on his head and destroying him. And 2,000 people just watching, security guards nowhere to be seen. So I stepped in, picked him up, pulled him out, got the shit kicked out of me, and broke my ribs. And you know, went to the police, said, and the police were not interested. They said, well, yeah, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to get him a new t-shirt? Like, what? No, there's 2,000 witnesses to this racist attack. Do your job. They weren't interested. Okay, fine. And so then eventually went backstage and and my wife's quite feisty. She's and she's really tall, and next thing I know, I'm talking to some friends who are kind of like, wow, yeah, we saw what was happening. We were just going to come and help you, but we saw you had it all under control. Like, seriously? Like, I've broken my ribs. What kind of control do you think I had over, okay. And as I'm doing that, I see my wife go to the front of the stage and she just grabs one of these skinheads. And he was also really tall and she's just shaking him and it's just, and so I thought, all right, maybe I'll go and help out, see what's going on. All I heard her, all I heard her saying is, "You're just a bunch of effing cowards. You're just a bunch of cowards. You wouldn't do this if you're only, you're just a bunch of cowards." And the look on his face. And so I pulled her away, say, okay, enough. I think you got the point. And then the security jump on me. They say, what are you doing? Causing trouble. Like, what do you mean, me causing trouble? Um, and I explained the story, and they said, no, we didn't see it. Really? I don't know what's worse, that your security and you didn't see eight people kicking the living shit out of a person right in front of the stage, that you didn't see it in your security, or that you turned a blind eye to it because you're a racist. I'm not sure which is worse. But then he says, which ones? I said, those skinheads with smiles on their faces. So off he went to go and talk to them. Next thing I know, shaking hands, and he comes back and says, it's just a little misunderstanding. Like serious. And so then the next thing is that the compere is big, tall, white, dreads, saying, "Oh, it's so beautiful. Everyone coming here in love and harmony. It's so beautiful. One love, and all this kind of stuff." And so, well, first of all, going back to when my wife kind of grabbed the skinheads, and this is the thing about stories. This is part of I kind of when I teach, I kind of say, well, all stories ultimately are lies. None of them are the actual full truth because we only pick out or we only express how we remember it, and that's not complete. There's many things that happen that we don't remember, or maybe we embellish things. And she remembers very clearly being on the stage talking to the skinhead. I remember her being between the stage and the crash barrier and grabbing him and being literally eye to eye with him. Then the next thing that we disagree on or have a different memory of is the I remember the compare coming off stage and her going right up to him to tell her what she thought of him and his one love. And so again, I went up to kind of say, all right, let's calm this down. And all I could hear is him saying, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I've had a nice day. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. No, I've had a nice. I don't want to know. Don't want to know. And then I laid into him. Then I told him what she remembers as soon as he came off stage, me just running straight up to him and accosting him. Now, at this point, the security literally physically picks me up and physically kicks me out off the stage and out of the area. Later on, I then met someone who claimed to be the person who organized this particular festival. And when I told him my story, he basically said, no, it didn't happen. Couldn't have happened like that. And, and so basically I kicked him out of the party. It was my party. I organized it. And I was like, well, if you're so racist that you're not even going to hear this kind of story, you're not even going to accept that this happens. That's why your place is still so full of racism. Um, so basically I use this story to get different people in the workshop to think about, and they take on each character. So if you were the police, why, as a police person, would you respond the way you did? As a skinhead, why did you think it's okay to behave the way you did? As the compare, why is it that you behave the way? So that you can start to feel and understand and start to play the role of that character to
Yeah.
try and understand what may have happened to you to put you in a situation that that's the way you behaved,
Yeah.
that's the way you understood the world and saw the world, and therefore that's the
Yeah.
way you expressed it. And so while it is a story, it's a real story, and my ribs are still quite painful because of it. But it's a story that I hope gives people an understanding of themselves, of their own character. If we actually look at storytelling, you know, for me, the purpose of storytelling for thousands of years is so that people can put themselves in a situation that they may at some point be in, but they can think about how they would navigate themselves. What is the right, the just, the ethical way to actually navigate this situation? If I was here in front of that person, how would I respond?
Mm.
So that they can then have, a kind of moral response when they're actually in that situation. Obviously,
Mm.
the way storytelling with, you know, um, Hollywood and stuff is complete nonsense now. It's just about entertainment. But for me, storytelling is really powerful and it's a really important tool to get people to really understand themselves so that they can become, uh, you know, they can start undoing the patterns that society has created and that they have, inadvertently started to follow. So they can just break them down and start moving on.
That's such a powerful story. Thank you for telling that. It's really fascinating to hear how you have taken that experience and now use it in this way to give people that, as you said, this kind of deeper understanding of why people behave the way they do. I want to go back to something you said like several topics ago because it sprung up a thought about clowning was when you were talking about the wonderment and the awe that you experienced as a 4-year-old, I think, with that cucumber plant. And then you said how you still have that. And as you were telling that story, you were embodying the wonderment and the awe in that moment. And that's when I saw Rakesh the clown, because to me that is one of the essences of the clown state, is that sense of presence and an amazement and awe and astonishment and wonderment at the world. And so in clowning, a lot of exercises focus on just kind of developing that. So it was beautiful to see, this is where, you connect, one place where you can really connect to the clown energy for me. You have that quality and I can see it. And the projects you do express that quality. And I guess I'm curious, is that something you try to transmit and how to other people?
I think it's kind of just natural. I don't think about it. It's just how I feel. That's how I express it. I think I probably would have been quite a good actor or something if
Mm,
if I am allowed to get into character. Um, Unfortunately, going back to school, at some point we had to make a choice between music and drama, and more or less the whole. And I chose drama because I thought I would be good at drama. And the whole school also chose drama. There was just a few people who chose music. And so the headmaster asked us to do it again in the same scenario. And so he then randomly had to pick people to do music. And he randomly picked every single Indian in the
mm,
school. And we
randomly.
turned up at class, really random, just by luck. Um, and we turned up at the music class, and the teacher said, "You even look an instrument, I'll beat you so fucking hard. You stare at sit in that seat, and you look at that wall. You dare turn around, I beat you." And so it totally destroyed my my love of music from that perspective, my ability to understand music. It totally destroyed my creativity in terms of art and in terms of expression. So so it certainly doesn't come from any kind of formal education in uh acting or in, clowning or anything. It just is me being me. And
Mm,
and I really truly deeply believe in, yeah, I'm a Gemini. So I can adapt to any situation. I can understand different people in different ways, and I can try and put myself in their position to try and understand what they might be going through so that I can understand why they behave they do, and what is it that I could do to help make that easier for them, so that I can actually encourage them and allow them, to walk with me so that we can walk together and do stuff together,
mm,
without feeling, that one is more powerful or one is more privileged or one is more, knowledgeable or whatever, but just how is it that we can move together?
mm,
And yes, so as part of that, as part of how I, as well as being able to adapt, for me, it's really important to be honest. What I can't do is I can't pretend. If I'm not happy, if something has happened and I am not happy, I can't pretend that I am happy. It's in my face. It's really obvious that I am not happy. So why suppress it? Why hold it down and actually compromise my my own health, my mental and physical health? I need to express it. Obviously, I need to pick and choose who I express that to. What's the safest way? Um, Either because it's unsafe for the person who offended me for them to hear what I have to say, or it could be dangerous to me, you know. So I need to pick and choose who and how and when I express it,
Mm,
and
mm.
most importantly, how I express it. But I absolutely must express it. As I was younger, the only way that I could express most of the emotions that I had were of anger and hatred, and I had to suppress that weed, with
Mm.
smoking marijuana, and otherwise I probably would have killed myself. I would have destroyed myself if I hadn't suppressed it. But then later on, once I realized actually I don't need this anymore, and I stopped, that was 20, 30 years ago, all of a sudden I had to deal now with all these emotions that were coming up and trying to figure out, because what I found for myself is that weed completely suppressed my ability to handle emotions. And so I was kind of like that 14-year-old again,
Yeah.
at the age of whatever, 30 something or 28, I think. All of a sudden, I'm 14 from an emotional perspective, and I'm
Yeah.
having to work things out all of a sudden. And um, in doing that, in starting to unpack and unpick things, I realized that, that it's better for me to express my emotions as soon as possible. Because if it's suppressed, the only damage, the real damage is to me. Suppressing it just creates more tension in me,
Yeah.
which I remember I was doing a Vipassana once, and I'd done a Vipassana before, and it was fantastic, really easy. I can get out of my body, leave my body really easily, and all the rest of it. Um, I have a history of very, very, very deep meditation where I would leave my body regularly. Um, and so then putting that into the Vipassana again was very simple, very easy. But on this one occasion, um, cut a very, very, very long story short, someone who had already kind of not upset me, but done something that was like, wow, that's quite rude, before the Vipassana started. Um, then I fast on Ekadashi, which is, so I don't eat or drink for 36 hours at a particular cycle of the moon. And and that happened to be on, I think, maybe the second or third day of this Vipassana. So I refused water. Not eating or drinking. That's fine. And then the next day, when I was breaking fast, there were these really tiny, tiny, tiny slivers of watermelon. So I walked, 15 minutes to go and pick one up, half an hour to eat it, put it in the bin, went to go and get a second piece, and this person just shouted at me, see, "Wow, who the hell do you think you are? 1 minute you're acting like you're holier than holy, then the next minute you're stuffing your face. 2 slivers of watermelon in 36 hours. That's hardly stuffing my face. And if I'd said it, bang, it would have been done and just laughed and gone. But I decided no, to maintain my silence. And I didn't say anything. I couldn't meditate now for the next, 6, 7 days. And then on the last day, the person running it, he said, right, it's all over. But if you want to stay, you can carry on till the end of today. And I'm like, what's the point? I haven't sat for 1 minute and meditated. I haven't, because all I was just, oh, this anger and la la la. And finally I expressed it. I said it to somebody. I said, oh yeah, this, she said that, la la la, one, this is what, no, I couldn't. And he said, okay, I hear that. Just do one thing, just for half an hour. Just try and sit now. Just please, just for half an hour and go and sit. Bang, 2 hours, left my body, gone. Phew. Deep, 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 deep meditation. When I came back, I then started walking around, and then I saw this person who said that, and you could see the fear in her face because she knew what she'd done. And I just went up to her and gave her a big hug, said, thank you. She was like, what? What? How? And then what I explained is what I experienced is so valuable. What I experienced is how completely, totally, absolutely overwhelming and destructive unexpressed anger is.
Mm,
Because I couldn't express something so simple. And if
right.
I'd been allowed to
Yeah.
express it, it would have been finished, done. But no, and it built up and it got worse and worse and worse, and because I couldn't express it.
Yeah.
And so, wow, thank you for such a gift.
It's those challenges, the things that create resistance and difficulty that we learn can potentially learn from most, right?
Yeah, I mean, my meditation path is tantric. So, an easy tantric path is not tantric at all. It's that challenge. It's that, these things that get put in your way that really challenge you, that force you to completely break the pattern that you're in,
Mm, right.
to reevaluate that pattern and build it up again in a much richer way. And so it's through that stress, through that difficulty that you
Mm,
actually learn and grow. And so this is Tantra, I mean, I'm talking real Tantra as opposed to the westernized version that many people seem to be making money off of.
sure.
But real Tantra is a really deep process of understanding and putting yourself through, or not running away, let's say, from difficult moments, but really facing it and really facing it, going through it so that you can really understand it and release whatever tension, your samskaras that may be, being built up around that.
Again, it's a real parallel with clowning. I mean, it's that sort of basic principle of clowning, really, that when you bring the dark, difficult, challenging thing up and find ways to kind of get playful with it and and physicalize it, it sort of dissolves, it sort of vanishes.
Mhm.
And not just for you, but for the audience. You know, for me, that's the role of the clown is to kind of bring up those things and share them in a way that we all kind of go, oh yeah, I have that too. I recognize that. And through the playfulness and the lightness that the clown brings to that thing, we are all sort of healed a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, this is what life is about. And as I say, being on this tantric path, it means not to run away from those hard, difficult
Mm.
moments, but to really face it and face it in whatever creative way that we can, because that's the only way you're going to resolve it.
I'd like to see a tantric clown. That would be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Um, I think it's automatic, isn't it? By the sounds of it, the
Yeah,
two
maybe.
surely are mirroring each other. By the sounds of it, I say I know nothing about clowning. I've never studied it. I've never really deeply thought about it. But from the conversations we're having now, I'm beginning to get a picture to see that, yeah, as you say, it's through clowning, through looking at situations, in a very creative way to help people, yourself as well as others, to see situations from a completely different light,
Mm.
to be able to understand it so that you can then choose what is your response. Do I
Yeah,
carry on with that pattern? Is that pattern actually, and is that pattern that you've just uncovered that you have, is it actually really serving you, or is it actually hindering you in life?
yeah,
So do you want to keep that pattern? Is it actually really helping you?
yeah,
Or are you really, is it yeah, is it challenging you? Is it creating more stress and more tension? All right, how would you like to transform it? In what way would you like to transform it?
yeah. I love it. One final reflection is that you were speaking of honesty and this inability you have to sort of to hide things now and the truth will out, you know. And again, for me that's like a beautiful implicit inherent clownish quality. You know, I'm not speaking of clown as a technique or as a artistic genre. It's like just as a human, there's there's a clownishness to this tendency you speak of to just you can't hide what you're feeling. Like it just is there, and you kind of have to be true to that. And that's what we aspire to in clown, is actually to not hide anymore, to be visible, to be transparent on the outside. So it's like what we're feeling inside actually is visible on the outside, and it goes against, all of our years of socialization, which is to conceal, to mask, to project, etc. So, what you have is a beautiful gift, and clearly sometimes a dangerous one.
Yeah, I I can't imagine living any other way because, as I say, um, if I don't express things, then it only hurts me.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm thinking about not wanting to hurt someone else and I don't say anything, and then it hurts me even more, and I then create patterns and response patterns in a way that later on will then hurt other people, then I've done no one a service. Not me, not, no one, just by trying to protect one person. And then that person also hasn't been given an opportunity to actually learn and grow themselves because I've ignored it and I've suppressed it. But again, it's about weighing up the probabilities and what is actually best for all. Because some people in at particular moments are too fragile or too vulnerable to actually be able to um, hear the truth at that particular moment. So it may not be your position to actually challenge them and in that particular moment. So how is it that who else can you defer that onto in order to protect yourself?
Rakesh, there's probably a lot more we could talk about, but I feel like there's so much there now already for in terms of an episode, and maybe there are other things that you want to talk about that you haven't talked about. But I've learned a lot. I've felt a lot during our conversation, um, in a really great, nourishing way. So thank you so much.
Well, and thank you for being there, for listening, and for creating the space where I can express myself. And yeah, and so to be heard is actually also a real gift. So thank you for your ability to hear and to ask the right questions and to steer the conversation in a beautiful way. So yeah, thank you.
Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Rootsman Rak. I found him super inspiring, just the way that he's led his life, the fearlessness about being different, speaking out, speaking one's truth, and just living one's life, to the full without worrying about what other people are going to think or what other people say. The willingness to be different. And I think that is, fundamentally a clown life, being driven by the need to speak one's truth, and not being driven by sort of societal expectation. So thanks, Rakesh, for being not a clown, but who inspires us to be a clown and to be better clowns. And thanks to you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that if you're not already a member, that you will check out Clown Spirit Village. This is where the community of clowns gets together to support one another, bring that strength to one another so that we can do the same as Rakesh with our lives and in our clowning. We can have the courage to live our true life of clowning, walk our true path, which can sometimes be challenging. And that's why Clown Spirit Village exists, to help in various ways through courses, coaching, through resources and masterclasses, to help people discover and deepen into the world of clowning. The link is in the show notes, along with links to the work of Rakesh himself. Thanks so much for being here today, everybody. Join me again next week for another episode of the Clown Spirit Podcast. Bye for now. And of course, as always, keep clowning.